Welcome to Internet Safety, hosted by Donna Rice-Hughes. Over the next hour, you'll learn practical and crucial tips on how to keep your loved ones safe in the digital world. Now, here is Donna.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining this episode of our show. We have a really exciting show lined up with a guest that you are going to love to hear from. We have Michael Reagan, and the name of the show is Michael Reagan's Story, from Child Survivor to Safety Advocate. Michael, who is a longtime friend of my husband's and mine, is the eldest son of former President Ronald Reagan and Academy Award-winning actress Jane Wyman. Wow, there's a legacy right there, Michael. He serves as chairman and president of the Reagan Legacy Foundation, which seeks to advance the causes President Reagan held dear. He is currently a Newsmax television contributor, a sought-out public speaker and media commentator, and has authored multiple books, including Twice Adopted and Lessons My Father Taught Me. Michael is a true Renaissance man, just like his dad. He has debated Mikhail Gorbachev, and he has also set records in powerboat racing. Michael, I didn't know you did that, but welcome.
Well, thank you. A lot of people, when your parents are Ronald Reagan and Jane Wyman, because only two people are ever born into a family that had a mother who became Academy Award-winning actress and a father who became president. That was my sister Maureen and I. People don't think you ever did anything but came out of the womb. That was it. Like you were a member of the Lucky Sperm Club, and you never really had to do anything else in your life. So, like, I was at an event the other day, and they were talking. Somebody said the same thing. You race boats? Yeah, I race boats. I was outboard world champion in 1967, inboard rookie of the year, 68. Set 5 world records in the 1980s. Did it all for charity. Raised almost $2 million for different charities. Cystic fibrosis, Statue of Liberty Foundation,
Wow.
the Olympics back in 1984, and what have you. So people don't know you ever really. What else did you do other than be Ronald Reagan and Jane Wyman's child?
Well, I
tried to get arrested a few times, just never worked.
It didn't work, right? And you grew up right, in this Hollywood sweethearts, right? Both of your parents.
Oh no, I grew up right because of my mother.
Okay.
Because of my mother. Dad was a pushover.
Really?
The only people he didn't like were Russian. So if you were born Russian in his house, it was a bad day. You couldn't have dinner.
Really?
But my mother was really the keeper of the flame. I mean, the flame, but that's why all the kids grew up not liking their mothers, because the moms were the ones.
Yeah, we're the ones
discipline.
that we're the right. We're the disciplinarians.
My mother had a riding crop. Like using a horse and like the Santa Anita, right, stuff like that. The Derby, 10 times back of each leg. You only have to do it once.
Oh yeah, mine had a wooden spoon.
Oh yeah, went to military school with the Sisters of Non-Mercy. Went there. Then I went from the Sisters of Non-Mercy to the Jesuits. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They beat goodness into me.
Well, you know what, Michael, you have just been such a champion, just like your dad, and I have obviously followed your career. And back in 1998, when you had a very, very popular radio talk show as a talk show host yourself, you were interviewing me. And I had just come out with the book Kids Online, and we were talking about all the ways that kids were being sexually exploited online, from exposure to pornography, the whole child pornography issue back then, online predators, and etc. And I made the comment that some of the ways that sexual predators and pedophiles keep their kids safe, or keep their kids quiet in silence, is by manipulating them and also taking images, videos of them, and then threatening them that if they say anything, that they'll expose them and show these images to their parents or to someone else. And of course, now kids have, this can go viral online just like that. And on that show, we were live, I think, you told me your story. And you said it was the first time that you had shared this publicly. Would you mind sharing with our audience What happened to you?
Yeah, you talk about those images and what have you. In fact, at the end of, I think my first book, On the Outside Looking In, I even say, somebody asked me if the story came out before the book was printed. I actually made the statement I wouldn't be alive to do the first interview, because
Right.
suicide really becomes an option.
Right.
It really does become an option rather than having those photographs put out there in the public to show in your own mind you've been living a lie. And
Right.
what happened to me, and I'm not sure if it happens more in the adopted operation, because I was adopted.
Right.
Uh, so you always feel like, you know, great, I was chosen, what have you, but why'd somebody give me up? So you're always kind of searching.
Yeah.
And my mom put me into an after school program. I mean, it's really interesting. I think it was the 1 year I wasn't in boarding school as a child. I
Right.
was like third grade at the school. And after school, I would go to a program and with Don Havlick, who's dead now, and he would take me, show me how to throw a baseball, football, gymnastics. He did all the things that I couldn't do with my dad at that time because my parents were divorced.
No.
So I was seeing my dad on weekends and riding horses and having a great time. But during the week, it was Don Havlick taking me to these programs and what
Right.
have you. And I always wanted to kind of impress my dad that I was really cool and good. And I was cool and good. I was good. Baseball, football, swimming. I was really good. And Don just kind of, moved in on me. And, gosh, I remember one time I got like second place in a yo-yo contest. He gave me first place so I could show him first place.
Wow.
And my parents framed it. And my mom did frame, put it over my bed.
Right.
But that was almost a catalyst that really got him to a point where he started, sexually abusing me. But as a child, at 8 years old, you don't know you're being sexually abused. People
Right.
think that, you go home and say, I was sexually abused today by Don. You don't do that. You
Right.
don't know what's going on. You're fearful. You're not sure what's going on. Uh, and what have you. And that was me. And so he began the process of abusing me almost every day after day camp and taking me home. And then one day he took me up the Santa Monica Mountains here in Los Angeles and had me stripped down. He took photographs of me, naked photographs of me in the Santa Monica Mountains. And a few days later, told my mom he was going to take me to dinner. She said, great, bye. And he took me to his apartment. And he had to make, again, 8, 9-year-old does not know, dark rooms from any room.
Right.
Took me into his apartment. And what I know now is he had a makeshift dark room. I think it was in his kitchen.
Right.
And he had, I guess it was also negatives as a curtain. And he took a piece of paper and he moved it from a pan to a pan to a pan. And what came up was a beautiful picture of the Santa Monica Mountains I'd never seen. That was magic to me.
Right.
And he said, would you like to do it? And I said, yes. And he took my left hand and put tongs in it, piece of paper, and he moved my arm from the one pan, second pan, and third pan. What came up was a naked picture of me. And I just looked at it literally in shock. And he said to me, wouldn't your mother like to have a copy? And it was at that point, and then he abused me. That point, I walked away from my mom. I walked away from my dad. I walked away from God. I walked away from everybody and was scared to death for the rest of my life. Scared if somebody ever saw that
Right.
or found out about it, because I wanted to be liked.
Yeah.
So I honestly tell you, because you talk about my personality was born out of that moment.
Right.
Born out of that moment. To put on that, hi, how are you? Because inside I was absolutely dying.
Right.
And scared me to death. And I didn't tell anybody till, 1987, 1988 on Ashley's birthday up at the ranch. I told Dad and Nancy. I told my mom just before that. And what happens is, parents sometimes, the problem with parents is they start feeling guilty they've done something wrong.
Sure.
My mom didn't do anything wrong,
Right.
but she wasn't aware that you really need to know who your children are with. You really
Right.
know who that person is.
Right.
And sometimes we use those situations as a babysitting service for us, so we don't have to deal with our children like we're doing today with phones and laptops and all that. It's a babysitting service for our kids. and we don't know what's going on there, but you don't know what's going on, at a day camp. And Havlik died, I think, in 2007. And I got a letter from his sister-in-law who had reached out to me before.
Right.
And because in his life, his brothers had told their mother that their brother was an abuser, sexual deviant. And the mother disowned the brothers.
Okay.
And when she died, she gave her house to Don.
Mm.
And when Don, and this is normal, this is not abnormal.
Right.
And then when Don died, they went to a chest that he had at his bed, and there's nothing but photographs of children in there. And the letter said to me, Michael, you can finally rest. Don has passed, and the pictures he took of you and the others have finally been destroyed. Those photos were not destroyed from 1953-54 till 2007 when he died. They were still out there. And I scared to death when my dad ran for governor. I was scared to death when he ran for president of the United States and was president of the United States of America, that if people found out about me, he wouldn't win. I would be blamed. And so suicide became an actual option in my life.
And you live with all of that fear. Michael, I know this story, and it's just still is just so hard to hear. And one of the things I want my listeners to understand is that child sex abuse can happen to anyone, anyone and anyone's child. No child is immune. Kids are exposed to people all of the time in the physical world and now the online world who are predators, pedophiles, and abusers. And oftentimes it's that person that the parent trusts, right? And then therefore
Absolutely.
The child trusts because the parent trusts them. You've got a chapter in your book called Protecting Uncle Charlie or something?
Yeah, Protecting Uncle Charlie, I think it's the third chapter in Twice Adopted,
right?
Which deals with all this. Well, it's the end result of the first book. Protecting Uncle Charlie, because we do. The church protects the priest,
right?
The school protects the teacher, and the family protects Uncle Charlie, just like Don was protected by his mother. And so the kid's sitting there in nowhere land, because I think I told you this the other day. It takes a child 7 times to tell a person what has happened to them before the first person even listens to them. 7 times. At what point, Donna, when you're trying to tell somebody something, do you say, forget it?
Right. And the other thing is that
it's not 7.
Well, we hope now, with all of the information out there about the prevalence of child sex abuse, and I was sexually abused too, but not anywhere at the level that you were. And I did tell my parents, and I was about 7 years old, and they just said, just don't go back over there anymore.
Oh, yeah, there you go. That's the answer. There's your answer. Don't go there anymore.
Don't go there. You know.
What effect did it have on you? Don't worry. Just don't go there anymore.
Yeah, and I always thought it was my fault, and why was I doing that? Because I wanted to go get marshmallows, because his wife got us marshmallows. So that's kind of how they lured me in. And one of the things, let's just let every parent let this soak in, every grandparent. Your child is not immune. When they say something, even if they hint around, because they're already being shamed and maybe blackmailed because images have been taken of them. Listen, believe them, have an open conversation with them, be that safe person in anything as delicate as this, but just in anything, so that your kids know they can come to you, right, Michael?
Yeah. Your kids need to know they can come to you, but there's also red flags.
Right.
The red flag is, why does my child have a different attitude today? Why is my child not doing so well in school? What happened to my child's friends? Right. What's happening? Because all those things are happening to me.
Right.
I went through 5th grade twice, and what have you. And I was scared. My parents put me to an all-boys Catholic school with the Jesuits. Right. I was scared to death because I was worried people would think I was gay.
Right.
Now, you have to go back to 1950s. Don't worry about 2024. I worry that people think, oh, my God, people are going to think I'm gay. And that makes you nervous. at that time, 1954, all through going into high school and also in grammar school. So there's a lot of issues you deal with. So why are his grades going down? Why is he acting out? Why is he getting angry so quickly about things in his life? Why is he doing this?
Right.
There's always a reason. And he's not going to tell you the right reason. He'll tell you something else. I can't get along with so-and-so. I can't do this. I'm going to lie to you because I don't want you to know the truth, because the truth is killing me. And I don't want to tell you because in my case, I was adopted and I worried maybe they would give me away.
Oh,
Maybe they say,
Michael.
hey, one mother gave me away. Maybe they'll give me away too. If they find out I'm dirty, they may also give me away. So I had all kinds of issues going on,
Sure.
in my life at that time.
Sure you did. Sure you did. And the adoption thing, one thing you said to me when you shared your story at another point, at an event we were having at Enough is Enough, you talked about the older male on younger male abuse. And you just mentioned your fear of people thinking you were homosexual. Just talk to the what happens to a boy that may be different than the girl who's abused
Well, first of all,
by a man.
they don't really report how many boys are being sexually abused. It's always about guys sexually abusing girls.
Right.
You don't hear about the boys. And there's a lot of boys out there who've been sexually abused in their lives who are dealing with that.
Right.
Dealing with stigmas that they may put on themselves. It's not the stigma you put on me. It's my stigma I put on me
Right.
that I'm dealing with.
Right.
And so, you really got to pay attention to your boys. Is someone else taking your time as a father or as a mother? Are they spending an inordinate amount of time with your child? Are they taking them to dinner? Are they taking them to movies that you should be doing? Are they doing that? Because if you have somebody doing that a lot, I'd be worried.
Yeah,
Who
and
is that
doing
person?
that. Right.
And grandparents, as much as anybody who is guilty of this is anybody, because we always trust grandma and grandpa. Grandpa's a great guy, sit on his lap. And you're going like, I don't sit on his lap. Are you crazy? Why is it you get upset every time we ask you to go over to grandpa when grandpa comes over for Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas? Why does he get mad? Why does he get angry? Why does he run away? What happened? There's reasons for that. Children just don't accidentally do those things.
Right.
So we
right.
really have to understand your child and their emotional things that are going on and why these emotional things are in fact happening to them, and really be a support system to the child, not to grandpa,
Right.
not to the buddy that's spending a lot of time taking. Thank you for taking him to another movie. Not to that person. That person not that person may be sexually abusing your child, your boy child, or your daughter. And I know people. I told you a story about there was a gentleman who was wanted to become a priest. He was working at local high school, and he sexually abused both of his brother's children, the son and the daughter. And the mother called my show one night. And you go the backstory. His brother was the head of the sex crimes unit in Los Angeles, California. And that brother protected his brother who had sexually abused his own children.
Unbelievable.
And I sat there and I talked to Tiffany. She's in my book, Twice Adopted. I talked to Tiffany. I remember that conversation with her. And because I called back after the show and talked to her. And she just wanted her father to support her. I want my father to support me. He just never signed a letter supporting me. And it finally happened, but it's almost too late. She was a cutter. If you have a child who's a cutter, chances are they've been abused.
A cutter.
Boy or girl.
Yeah, that's a cutter. That means they're cutting themselves to release the pain and acting out. That's a big red flag, everybody, every parent out there. Yeah.
She was a cutter. I remember talking to her and I said, you went to therapy today? She said, yes. I said, I bet you walked out. How'd you know? I said, because when you walked in, your therapist said to you, I know exactly how you feel. And you said, F you. And
Right.
you walked out the door.
You have no idea how I feel.
I don't care. The last thing you should need to say to a child who's been sexually abused, I know how you feel. No, you do not know how I feel. Don't tell me how I feel, because we're shut off forever. We will never talk again. We're done. And I talked to her about 2 or 3 times, and the brother never really wanted to come back home. The father finally, you know what I did with him? I talked to the father on the phone. And I said, what do you think of Cardinal Mahoney in Los Angeles? And he literally went off in a 5-minute diatribe against Cardinal Mahoney. And I agree. And he got all done. I said, I agree with you. I said, but what's the difference between you and Cardinal Mahoney? And he started crying, because nobody had ever hit him that way.
No one had confronted him and called him out. It's time for some accountability.
Yeah.
So, Michael, let's fast forward, because we're now living in the digital age. I'm going to give you some numbers here, and you may know this already, but our listeners might not. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received the largest amount of reports last year, a record 36.2 million reports. And that represents many, many images and videos in those reports of abused children. That represents also a 300% increase in online enticement cases since 2021. The child porn industry is exploding. We're now referring to this with a proper term, and I'm sure you'll agree with me. It is child sex abuse material. We call it CSAM because it is the record of sexual violence against a child. Here's another point. Younger and younger children are being targeted on an industrial scale by internet groomers. In 2021, there was a 3-fold increase in imagery of 7 to 10-year-olds. We know that images of children as young as toddlers and infant is the new normal. So imagine now, fast forward, what would a child feel like? You know what you felt like with this one man who kept these images private. Now, fast forward, these images are going all over the world, being downloaded, being used repeatedly by predators that are using those images to arouse themselves. So that child is being continually violated every time that image is circulated or downloaded, right?
Think of them as baseball cards.
Right.
Think of them as baseball cards. As we're in baseball playoff season, think of baseball cards. They trade baseball cards. They trade images of children, just like Don had a chest full of basically baseball cards of children that he had sexually abused over all of those years, if you will. And that's what they do. But what we do as parents, I talked about earlier, the fact that, we used to send the children to after school day camp. Well, now we allow our children to babysit themselves with their iPhones, with their iPads, and what have you. And no telling who can get into the iPad, who can get into the iPhone, and what have you. And we use it as a babysitting service because we as parents were too damn busy to spend a whole lot of time with our kids. So here's your iPad, go in your bedroom, go in your bedroom. Don't do it in the living room. Don't be around me. Go in your bedroom, sit back, and look at your iPad and play games on your iPad. And these sexual abusers know exactly where the kids are, and they go after them. And you need to, as a parent, you need to be monitoring and policing whatever your children are using, iPad or iPhone, to see what's going on.
And online gaming devices as well. In fact, the Attorney General of Virginia, who I've done 2 town halls with.
You couldn't find a bigger one of those?
I know. I don't see that well anymore, Michael.
You hit your husband with that?
Oh, well, when he misbehaves, Okay. But what A.G. Miro has said, he said, the moment you give your child an internet connected device or a smartphone is the day they can lose their innocence. And before we go to break, Michael, parents, grandparents, just understand this. Where kids are playing, predators are preying. So they're in online gaming devices, they're on social media. Let me just give you another data point. 40% of teens said that they have been approached by someone attempting to befriend and manipulate them online. That is recent. and the majority being girls. There's a lot more here. So, Mike, when we come back, we're going to talk about the role of legislation. You've got some very strong thoughts on that. We're also going to talk about the Children's Internet Safety Presidential Pledge, and we're going to talk about how to protect kids. We're going to give you we're going to drill down into some very specifics. And then we're going to talk about the movie Reagan, about your dad. So everyone, please come back after the short break, and we look forward to it. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We've had a very lively and hard discussion in the first part of our show with Michael Reagan, who shared his story of early childhood sex abuse and the fear and the shame that came with that when his abuser took pictures of him and threatened to go to his mom, Academy Award winning actress Jane Wyman. And so, Michael, that was just heartbreaking. And I asked you, when years later, you told your parents what had happened to you as a boy. What did your dad, President Ronald Reagan, say when he found out?
Yeah, we were actually up at the ranch with the family. It was Ashley's 4th birthday, and 1987. And what's in the book? I told him what was in the book. And I remember I was actually looking at my dad's belt buckle, and everything that was inside of me was coming out my eyes, my ears, my nose, my mouth. I was throwing up on my dad's boots. And I was worried about if he looks down, looks at his boots, he's really going to be mad because they were nice boots. And I was puking all over him. And I told him, and he said, "Where is he? I'll kick his butt." And then he said, I don't think he has a butt anymore. But that's what I told him. So that'd be 1987. So this would be, if you go back to, when I was 5 years old, whatever, 3rd grade, 8 years old, I guess, 1953 to 1983, so 30 years before I told anybody. And my mom had me in therapy before.
Right.
And I just told him I couldn't get along with mom. And I moved in with my dad for a while, when I was in high school. But I just thought I couldn't get along with mom because I was really trying to alienate her to kick me out because I felt I didn't belong there because, again, what had happened. I was unclean. I was just really unclean.
Right.
And it was, I used to go, to carry on what you're talking about. I take it a step further. I was worried about, if we talk about being homosexual. So I go downtown, I steal money out of my dad's wallet and go down to downtown LA at night when I was 16 years old and buy hookers to prove to myself that I wasn't.
Right.
And so, you talk about today, what's going on the internet, what kids, how they react to what's going on the internet. I was reacting the same way, but no internet.
Right.
So I was going down, to have sex with girls to prove to myself I wasn't homosexual.
Right.
But it was never enough.
Right. And your abuser was an older male that was trusted by your parents and by you, and he basically blackmailed you into silence with images of you.
Absolutely right. And those images were not destroyed till 2007. From 1953, 54. Yeah.
And you live with that fear all that time. Let me, right now, everyone, if you find out that this has happened to your child, and just remember online, these images, when these predators take these images and these videos, and we talked about that it's a multi-$100 billion a year industry. Law enforcement said they can't even enforce their way out of it. It's so bad. It is so out of control. But if you find out there's something out there, you always want to contact the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Google the cyber tip line. Go to also the Take It Down campaign. And they have actually worked with some of the social media companies, this is happening on these platforms, to get these images down. Because that's that would be important to you, right? As a child, and knowing that those images, and now you're grown, that they're down finally.
No, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, in fact, mine were up for 1953 to 2007. They were available. um, along with all the other kids' images who are in that same locker at the end of the bed of Don's bed.
Right.
So it was, yeah, because those are, it's like you have the abuse is one thing, but it was the images that scared the crap out of me.
Right.
Those would become public because, I was worried back then that National Enquirer, somebody would get them because they get everything.
Yeah, they do.
Today you've got even more outlets. National Enquirer is like, hello, that's like yesterday's news story compared to what they have today.
Right.
And so the chances of images popping up or being sent to your parents' phone or your best friend's phone or whatever are so easy today.
Yeah, it's a click of a
again,
mouse, hit send. It's
yeah,
all over the internet, just like that.
The image that stayed, the images me. Well, I will never forget the images that he took of me. And if you get me at the right time, you'll see me just start crying again because it's very easy to go back to 1953, 54, and you feel the same hurt, same pain. I remember somebody came up to me one day and said, you haven't gotten over it yet because you saw my story and saw me just tear up when I was trying to tell the story. Did you haven't gotten over it yet? I said, maybe I haven't gotten over it because God wants you to see the damage that is done from something that happened to me so many years ago. And a lot of damage is, in fact, done that you never have had. I'm still damaged. People sit there and go, all you have to do is accept Christ. Great. I have to accept Christ every day. I can't accept it one day and go, hey, and my book Twice Adopted deals with that. Adopted by my parents, adopted by God. So I had to run back to God. But if I don't run there every day, I'm a wreck. To this
Me too.
day, I would be a wreck.
I for a lot of reasons without him. And but we talked a little bit in the beginning about how important it is to listen and to believe your child and to keep open lines of communication with them. It certainly is, and be paying attention to what's happening online. If you give your kids any internet connected device, the bad guys have the opportunity, whether they're pornographers, child pornographers, traffickers, predators, to prey on your kids. And kids are innocent and they're vulnerable and they're going to have a tendency to trust these people. So we talked a little bit about the warning signs, but let's talk about how to be the first line of defense. All right? Know who your kids are talking to online. Ask them if anything has ever happened, because look, they're finding this stuff out at school anyway. All right, they know there's porn out there at 7 and 8 years old. Kids even that young are getting hooked on online pornography. They know, so you can start having these conversations early, which you should. But know who they're talking to. Have ongoing communications with them, and also use the technology tools that are available to you, like the filtering technology and the monitoring technology, Michael, because this will let you see who's trying to talk to your kids, or if your kids are trying to get out to a site that they're not supposed to go to. And turn on the time controls. I mean, you've got to realize this is connecting your kid to all the good that the internet has to offer and all the bad and all of the criminals, which sexual predators are. Michael, what do you want to add to that?
No, I agree. I agree with that. The thing is that, again, we could tell parents this, but understand when you give your child a internet connected device as a babysitting service, you're seeing predators do high fives around the internet. Got another one.
Yeah.
Got another one coming in. Incoming.
Right.
They're doing high fives.
That's right.
And you really need to understand that. That's exactly what they're doing. That's why it's $100 billion industry, is because we're in fact doing that. We're creating the place for them to go after your child.
That's right.
And we better quit using these things as a babysitting service and understand that the predators are high-fiving each other and what have you. We did a thing in California. I worked with a Democrat to pass legislation requiring teachers, if they become aware of any child being abused in their classroom, that's been abused, they have to, in fact, report it to the authorities. And if they don't, they're held accountable.
Yes.
They're held accountable for not reporting it to the authorities. I got a call from the Republican saying, you know how much money that's going to cost that we have to do that? You know how much money that's going to cost? I said, you Republicans are all alike. You're always worried about how much money it's going to cost. I said, why don't you do a Google search and find out how much money is lost to these children who have been sexually abused,
Right.
income-wise, over their lifetimes.
Right.
And it's going to far more money is lost by these kids
Right.
than what you're going to lose not come in. And I'll tell you, I know that because I didn't finish college. I dropped out of Arizona State. And I think about it every day. I got into boat racing and sales and marketing and things of that nature. I became very entrepreneurish and so on. But a lot of things I didn't finish. I just
Right.
didn't feel worthy.
Right.
And I think about it every day. Gosh, if I had not, my wife said to me one day, she said, don't let someone else's attitude determine yours for the remainder of your day.
Right.
And I was allowing my molester, who molested me when I was 8 years old, control my life, all of my life, everything I was doing, and the way I was treating my son. When my son Cameron got to the age I was, basically when I was molested, I was not hitting, I was browbeating him and talking down to him and make him feel bad. And Colleen walked in and said, "What the hell are you doing? Quit blaming God and everybody else for everything, and start praying to God." And if she hadn't turned me around and turned me the other direction, you and I probably wouldn't be doing this interview. But I allowed him to sit there and control my life and control my attitude towards everything and everybody. I do. I think about it. Would I've done this? What would I have been?
Right.
Had
If
I
that
not
hadn't
done that,
happened.
what would I have been? What would I have accomplished? I mean, I've accomplished things, but what other things might I have accomplished?
Well, Michael,
what about education?
You have your story just even when over this broadcast, and we're going to share this a lot in the future videos from this, saving one child that may be in the grips of a predator right now, or preventing one child from having to suffer what you suffered is huge. That's everything, protecting their innocence. And I want to make clear to those who are listening, the way the predators are grooming now online, they are still getting those images of those kids. It's not in person necessarily. They're grooming them. They're pretending to be their friend. They're manipulating and isolating them till they get that child in sexual conversations and comfortable enough to send that predator images of themselves. And that is what happens. And then that predator can continue to groom and sexually exploit them online, and also perhaps get an in-person meeting with them and sexually abuse them offline. So it goes offline to online to offline to online. So pay attention. Those warning signs Michael talked about in the beginning, the red flags. Are they getting gifts? Are they spending an inordinate amount of time online? Have they become incredibly secretive, very sexually curious for their age, for instance? These are all red flags, right, Mike?
Oh, they're absolutely all red flags and what have you. And we got to see them as red flags.
Yeah.
And really, we have to be the monitors of these things because nobody else is going to monitor it.
No, we have to.
So we have to be the ones to do it. I've got an 8-year-old and a 8-year-old granddaughter, a 6-year-old granddaughter, and what have you. I think about them all the time. Cameron, my son, thinks about them all the time, monitors what's going on.
Yeah.
And his wife, Susanna, got a little boy, going to be 2 years old in December. So, a lot going on in the Reagan household, and watching out, for the grandkids and all that, because you worry about them.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got 5. Well, we're going to go to something that I really want to get your thoughts on. Your dad was one of my probably favorite presidents ever. In fact, I am wearing a red jacket in his honor. I remember you told me he never went into the Oval Office without a coat and a tie on because he respected the office. Well, your dad also commissioned the Meese report. The Attorney General of the United States was Ed Meese to look into and study pornography. This is pre-internet. Well, now enough is enough. The organization that I run, we just put out the 2024 Children's Internet Safety Presidential Pledge, calling on candidate Trump and candidate Harris to sign the pledge. I'm going to talk about what's in this pledge if elected, right? Because what we want the next president of the United States to do is to prioritize the prevention of the online sexual exploitation of children. Because when it comes from the top, things can start to turn, right, Mike?
Yeah, but it needs to come from the top. And like you and I have talked about this, it seems the only time things come from the top is when a member at the top has to live with the same thing you and I are talking about, when it happens in their own family. Right. Sexual abuse or what have you. Then they go, oh, wait a minute, we got to do something about this and what have you.
Right, because it's always somebody else's kid, right? It's not going to happen to my kid.
Yeah. It's always somebody else's kid and what have you. So, when a member of government has it happen to them, oh, we need to do something about it. But you have a government-run organization, foster care, that is a pipeline. Right. To child sexual abuse, a pipeline to human trafficking, an absolute pipeline. And that's why Dr. Phil says you do not want your child to go into foster care. And he's on the board of foster care. He knows why. Because it's a pipeline to human sex trafficking and is a pipeline to, in fact, sexual abuse. So the government needs to sign this and realize that they have their own national organization, foster care, that in fact is creating an environment for the pedophiles to come in and take these children who hit the streets with no education, nothing in their pockets, hit the streets at 18 years of age, and boom, next thing you know, the only way they can make money is selling sex, selling their bodies, and human sex trafficking goes.
And it's heartbreaking. So I'm going to real quickly run through what we're asking these candidates to do. To appoint an attorney general to prioritize the aggressive enforcement of current laws, the aggressive enforcement and funding. We're fighting multi-billion-dollar criminal enterprise. We talked about the child porn industry. The trafficking industry is multi-billions. The porn industry is multi-billions. And we're putting little pieces of money to this. We got to fund law enforcement. And we're asking the next president to advance new public policy, because you've always got new things evolving. And this is very much a bipartisan issue, and we're seeing that in the United States Senate. One of the other things we ask is that the president would direct the Surgeon General to take action to address the public health risk of this. And the current Surgeon General said this is the largest public health issue of our day, particularly social media. We asked for the creation of a presidential commission to look at the links between pornography, child sex abuse material, exploitation, trafficking, and everything else. Look what your dad did. We're still talking about the Meese report. And also advance legislation to rein in big tech, and to get these big tech companies that are often putting profits over the safety of children. They're doing this, and we found that the stick approach sometimes works better than that voluntary approach. I've been doing this for 30 years. We haven't had a lot of voluntary of anything. So Michael, you want to comment on any of those points, and then we're going to go.
No, you're right. You're right, but they've got to do it, and you're going to take the public outcry to have it be done. But again, you have a lot of people who have a child who's been abused who are afraid to say anything, right? Because they feel it's a dark cloud, on their lives. I was telling you during the break, like with Nancy, when she knew my book was coming out, she came over the house to remind me that, when they started asking me where I was when I was sexually abused, make sure you tell them you were living with your mother. And you're going like, okay, but that's normal. I don't hold against Nancy. That's normal. She's protecting, and parents have a tendency to protect. And so they don't want to go public and tell them. My mother was devastated, but she didn't. And so it's really incumbent upon those people like you to really bang the drums and the pots and pans to get them to do it, because it's hard for a parent to sit there and tell someone their child has been sexually abused. It's really hard to tell them that, for them to come out because they feel guilty as if they've done something wrong.
Right.
And it's
They
not that
missed
you've done
it.
something wrong. It's just,
Right.
it happens. And you've got
It
to,
happens. Right. I just interviewed Michael, a member of South Carolina legislature recently, Brandon Guffey, whose son was sexually sextorted. And the day that happened, he took his own life. And Brandon said on our show, he goes, I'm still blaming myself. And I said, it's not your fault. You know, it's not your fault. But there are things now, particularly with ongoing child sex abuse. You know, if kids come and say something to you, believe them, and say, there is nothing you can tell me that is going to make me love you any less. That is just something that I think is so important to share every day. So now back to your dad. You had a great relationship with him. The Reagan film.
finally.
The Reagan film is out. You know that back when it was years ago, God, I don't remember, when Mark Joseph was trying to make it, I tried to
About
raise
15
some money.
years ago.
Yeah, I tried to help him raise some money. I took it to some filmmakers and, you know, I worked on the script a little bit and now it's out. Michael, tell us what you think about it and why people
No, it's very
should
good. No, it's
see
great. I've
that.
known Mark a long time also. And,
Yeah,
you know, I sat down with him years ago and I just telling him stories that I only had
right.
that would connect dots. And it was great to see them actually show up in the movie. So, yeah, it's accurate the way it's depicted. I lived it, so I can tell you it's accurate. It's a biopic. Understand that has to do with, you know, dad and communism. So people think they're going to see, you know, a political action film. You know, dad Ronald Reagan against. No, it's Ronald Reagan against communism, whether
Right.
it's Hollywood, all the way to the Berlin Wall. And what people may not see, something you'll see in the movie you will never see today, is when my dad was shot, and one of the days he woke up in the hospital, who was sitting in the chair with the rosary? Tip O'Neill.
Wow.
Tip O'Neill was in my dad's hospital room with a rosary, praying with my father. You will not see that today in America because of social media and everybody else. And that's what's really sad. I think social media, forget what's going on with child pornography.
Right.
Social media, I think, in many ways, is destroying the fabric of America.
Yeah.
And again, there was Tip O'Neill, two people, loggerheads on politics, but you know, the two of them passed the largest tax break in American history back in the early 1980s. Tip O'Neill was praying with my dad after he was shot. So you really go see the movie and stay until the very end. At the very, 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 very end, there is a letter written by a child in Reykjavik to my dad about his goldfish that died when my dad was in not Reykjavik, but in Switzerland at the first Gorbachev meeting. So stay till you hear that letter.
Thank you for sharing that so much. Like I said, your dad was just amazing, and he was really loved by so many people, and still is. We're still talking about his legacy, and that's part of what you're doing now, is talking about his legacy. And you know, to the topic at hand, and that is preventing the online exploitation of children. What I have found, I mean, we're living in such a divisive, polarized, partisan country, right? But on this issue, we have seen incredible bipartisan support with 7 or 8 major bills in the Senate that have we're still trying to get some of them passed and into the House, but they have passed out of committee and had bipartisan co-sponsors. So we do have some members, just to be encouraged, in Congress who are working together on this. I would say this is one of the biggest nonpartisan issues in the United States of America that has wide bipartisan support, which is why when we went out with this pledge, you can go see it on our website, we went out with this pledge to these candidates. And by the way, Donald Trump signed it before he was president in 2016, and then Hillary Clinton supported it. So this, we can come together to protect our kids' innocence, right, Michael?
But you know what you could do on your website, and you probably have, put out the number, this bill number, Senate Bill what? What is it?
Yeah.
Who's the one that's sponsoring it? It gets out of committee. Why is it on the floor? Why is it being voted on? So give us the Senate bill number so that when we call, you need to support Senate bill number, boom.
Boom.
Let us know. I used to do
Exactly.
that on my radio show back when. I used to, every day at the end of my show, I said, here are the bills coming up. These are the ones going to be voted on tomorrow. And
Okay.
people love that. And it really helped. And Congress enjoyed the fact I did that.
Yes.
Give us
Well,
the bill number and give us the name of the sponsor of that bill.
Well, we will come back when Congress is back in session, and we'll start doing that. We do have the information on our website because there are many pieces of legislation, and you know how that goes, right, Michael? But you're right. Congress is trying to do the right thing. States have passed bills. You got one passed in California that you mentioned. So as we wrap, Michael, we've got a couple minutes left. What do you want to leave our listeners with?
Protect your kids. I mean, it's really the fact that this can happen to anybody, anywhere, anytime, and even more so today than when I was going through it back when I was 8 years old. It has a devastating effect on you for your whole life, your whole entire life, if you're sexually abused or abused in any way.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let the abusers win the day. You need to
Exactly.
win the day for your children, not them. It's a battle that you can't afford to lose.
Oh, I love that. It's a battle you can't afford to lose. Michael, thank you so much. And to those who have joined us, please share this podcast wide. Go to our internetsafety101.org site. We've got all this information on how to protect your kids from any danger online, the ones we were talking about today, online gaming, social media, cyberbullying, you name it. Sign up for our free newsletter. We are letting you know every week what's coming down the pipe, what you need to know to protect your kids and to be the first line of defense. And finally, as we wrap, I just want to encourage you all to do what Ronald Reagan did and what Michael Reagan's doing, and that is fight the good fight, follow the golden rule, and teach your children to do the same. Until next time, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Internet Safety with Donna Rice Hughes, designed to educate, equip, and empower you to keep your children and family safe in the digital world. Until we talk again, have a beautiful and safe week.